G'day, Ben from Duck Playing Chicken here with another build series. This time we're returning back to the Macross universe, and I have this, the Regult Standard Type by Hasegawa in 1/72 scale. So great box art, and before I go into the details of what's in the box, I do want to talk about the Regult Standard Type that I have built previously. So this is the Bandai, I believe it's a repop of an older kit, whether it's RE or something like that, I'm not entirely sure. So I built this thing quite some time ago. I did put a light in it, but it doesn't seem to be working anymore. This kit was fine to put together, but it does have some serious issues with its legs. They're very loose, and so actually getting it to stand and sort of stay there is actually quite problematic. So I'm hoping that this Hasegawa one, it comes with a stand as well, which I really like to see, so I think that'll kind of alleviate some of the issues I've had with this other kit. Now, I don't want to discourage people from building this old kit. It is sort of pretty simple construction. It cleans up really nice. It's just the legs get a little bit, the joints get really loose, but it does hold up okay, and it has some sort of nice details with it. So that was something that I did quite some time ago. Okay, so let's have a look at what comes in this box. Obviously we get the instructions. Now I have taken all the sprues out of their bag so it doesn't cause a heap of noise. We'll start off, we've got some clear red parts. So I am going to be attempting to light this kit. I'm not sure to what extent, but I think there's going to be some opportunity there to light it. So that's something that I'll be looking at. We get some more clear parts, and this looks like it's predominantly for the base. So it does come with a base. It's a pretty shallow sort of base, so if I want to put batteries or something in there, I may have to come up with an alternative. But it's good that they've done it all in clear, so you've got the opportunity to paint it, or you can just leave it clear. There's one sprue that is this light blue for the sort of main body part, so it is sort of separated out into the different colours. The panel line detail and everything seems pretty good. No sort of complaints there. It seems like there's a bit more parts that sort of make up the body type compared to the repop, the Bandai repop that I showed before. And then we get a couple of white sprues, so obviously parts of the legs, and some other details. So again, if we have a look at the sort of panel line detail, seems pretty reasonable. And it looks like we get two of those sprues. I'm assuming one for one leg, one for the other, and this looks like it makes up some of the body components. Again, the sort of details that you get. I wouldn't say it's a super highly detailed, detailed panel lines and what have you, but there's a little bit on there to detail up. And then we get some grey runners, and so some of this will be the structural part of the body, and some other sort of bits to do with the articulation, I assume. Of course I won't know until I actually build it. We get some details for the legs, and also for, looks like, the weapons. Now for these here, I believe we get two of these sprues. Okay, I see. So you actually get, you can see they've added a piece to the one on the left, but these two here are identical sprues, so one for each leg. And also these are the thrusters that come out of the side, and what I like to call the Princess Leia buns on the side of the body. So I'm going to have a look at these in a bit more detail, see whether it's worth lighting them or not. We get two of these sprues, so you've got part of the foot and parts of the legs. You sort of get an idea of the detail. You do get a number of polycaps. That'll be obviously for the articulation, and thankfully you get some water slide decals. Now what's really cool about this is they've included the whole alphabet, the Zentradi alphabet, and they actually give you I've already had a look at this in the instructions, they actually sort of give you a translation, so you can see that there. So it means that you can make up your own markings, or your own call signs or what have you, and it looks like there's double there, so I might be able to get duck and chicken on there somewhere if I can, just as a bit of an in joke, so we might see how we go, but lots of symbols, and yeah, good to see water slide decals, it's always a good thing. Well, let's have a look at the instructions. I think the it's a fold out type. Instructions look pretty clear. Like most kits that come out of Japan, most of the text is in Japanese, but the illustrations are really easy to follow. There's sort of nothing too complex in this. You know, it'll have call outs to check the orientation of particular parts. But what is cool is you can see that with the stand, you can either have it sort of just standing up, or you can have it in flight mode, which is kind of nice. The other thing I'll be looking at, it looks like the interior of the body has sort of a skeleton structure to hold pieces to. It'd be interesting to see whether I can fit a battery in there and do it that way. You get some colour callouts, so it's a pretty straightforward colouring of the unit, so the grey, white and the blue. I think I'll have to come up with a custom blue colour, I'll probably have to mix that up, but I'm sure I can find an off-white and a grey to be suitable. And of course placement of the decals. So that's pretty much it for what you get in the box and what I'm, my next project that I'm going to build. So the next part is for me to actually build it up, have a look at it and work out whether I can sort of get some lighting into it and how I'm going to go about that. So we'll come back once I've built it all up. I've completed the initial construction, and so you get an idea of what it sort of looks like on the stand. The stand is what I believe is a standard sort of stand from Hasegawa, and to be perfectly honest, it's not really that flash. It's not really high, so really the stand is only if you want the Regult in flight mode, and that's where the legs sort of stick straight out the back of it. It's also not a great joint. It actually sags a bit over time, so just be wary of that. Now for me that's not so much of an issue. I should just say there's a piece you have to swap out to use the stand as well. For me it's not an issue not using the stand, because I've got no intention of displaying it on the stand. So I want to sort of talk about the kit and what I like about it and some issues I have with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it down, and I have the Bandai version here, the repop of the old kit, and you can see as far as size goes they're almost identical. The Bandai one is a little bit taller, and some of the details are a little bit thicker. It's a bit wider around the gills, but overall they're about the same height. They definitely look as though they're sort of the same scale. The old kit has really flimsy sort of legs, and you see the way these things are sort of flopping around, whereas the Hasegawa kit actually has fairly rigid joints. They're polycaps, so they tend to hold it a little bit better. Let's go out the way for now. So it does stand up fine. Of course, the nature of the design of the the vehicle itself, it is a little bit precarious. So you just have to make sure you don't knock it or whatever. Now, in terms of the build of the kit, it's straightforward. There's nothing really complex about it, but it has some really strange kind of quirks. So I'm sort of looking at it in terms of how am I going to light this and what can I sort of do as far as the lighting goes, running wires, up into the body. So the body has this kind of really strange frame inside it. And if I take the back door off, and of course it's so you've got this sort of block piece here. This is hollow, and this sort of holds on the Princess Leia buttons on the side. But then at the front of it, in the front of the kit, around sort of the main body area in here, it's actually a series of sort of flat pieces. So what I'm going to try and do is take this apart without destroying it. Let's see if I can show you what it looks like. Now, the best bit to take off is probably this one here. And there you can see. So there's kind of these pieces that are sort of sandwiched in with each other and things attached. And it actually presents a bit of a problem as far as what I want to do with this kit. So first of all, I thought, I can paint all these parts separately, so I don't have to worry about masking too much. But because there's actually no sort of support certainly for the top of this blue bit here, it sort of presses in a bit. The seam's a bit, is a bit uneven. So I'm thinking, maybe do I glue it as one piece, and then I've got the issue of lighting and how I go around that. So I've got a few things to sort of work on as far as, can I work out how I can get wiring around? How can I make it the easiest for me to paint without having to sort of mask everything off, have it fully constructed. So this is just a bit of a sort of a strange one. I'll see if I can take more off, just so you get a better idea of how the thing looks. So maybe this gives you a better idea of sort of what's going on as far as the sort of internal structure. The other problem is this bit here. So this is what supports the top blue part, and so if you ever want to sort of take it off again, it can be a bit problematic. So I've just trimmed these pegs down, but it doesn't give it a huge amount of support, sort of certainly in this area. So I don't know whether I might end up doing something with a bit of styrene just to sort of give it a bit of support. I might end up doing that. But first thing first, I've got to work out how I'm going to do the wiring. And doing the wiring, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that are going to prevent me from sort of making it easy for me to light it the way I want. So I want to talk about a quirk of this kit. What's really interesting about it is that when we look at the instructions, we can see we've got these red. Now I assume these are lights, and so they give call outs to what to paint them. And of course you've got the red eye in the middle. You've got these pieces down here. So these pieces on these parts, if I show you that, you can see they're actually molded in. Okay, they're not sort of separate parts, they're actually molded in. And based on these instructions, they expect you to paint them. Whereas the eye and also the pieces on the legs are actually clear pieces. So you can see that there's these clear inserts. But when you look at the clear pieces they provide, they actually give you 6 of these small red clear domes, which I sort of see as being the right size to actually replace those ones with. Now in the instructions, it's a bit strange because they say you don't actually use it. If we have a look here, this is the clear runner, and there's a whole grayed out section, which is the section of bits you don't need to use for the kit. And of course that relates to all these pieces. So I kind of think it's a bit odd. I'm not sure why they went down that path, but I've got every intention of drilling out these and replacing them with the clear bits and potentially lighting them. So I'm going to have to go away and give that a try. I think lighting the cockpit area or the main body is not going to be so much of an issue, because I think there should be room to get wires around for these two, and I can just use some very small LEDs in there. I might end up cutting this out and see if I can fit a battery in there and also a switch. And what I'd like to do is basically, instead of the back door being with pegs, which is a bit problematic to move, I want to just set up some magnets in there so it just pops straight off. I can change the battery, I can hit a switch to turn it on. So that's my plan for that. Also on the top bit here, I don't think it's going to be a problem to light these ones up. There's going to be plenty of room. Now the eye is a little bit interesting. If I hold it up, you can see that there's just like a pinhole in there that the light comes through. So if I turn it over, you can see that's the hole in the middle there where the clear red can be seen. So I'm not sure whether I want to actually drill that out and sort of get a bit bigger light in there, or whether I actually like that sort of pinhole red light. I'm not quite sure. I haven't decided yet which way I'm going to go. I think I might make it bigger, might make the hole bigger, just drill it out a bit more so there's a bit more light that can go in. So that one should be pretty straightforward. I've got plenty of room in there for the wiring. So in terms of, you know, the main body piece, that's not so much of an issue. I'm also considering lighting up these thrusters, and I'm not sure the best way to go about it. I think I might end up giving it a miss, just because I've got two issues. So for those of you who sort of buy this kit or are thinking about buying it, at least you get an idea of sort of what's going on with all these different pieces before you make any decisions about purchasing and lighting it. But we can see, you know, ideally you probably want to drill out the center there and put in an LED, but the problem is there's this post that goes through the middle of it, which ties into this polycap here. So if you were going to drill this out and put an LED in there, you would have to essentially glue this piece on, I think. So it's got a little bit of rotation in it, not very much, and I actually kind of don't really see the point as to why they set it up with a polycap, but that's what it is. So I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to go down that path, drilling that out, because the problem is I'm going to have to get a wire sort of on the side here, and keeping in mind that these things are designed to swivel, so depending on, you know, which way the thing's going. So I don't want the wire to sort of bind and get all twisted up on itself. So what I'd probably like to do is run the wire sort of through that post. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. That could be really interesting. The other thing that I might do is, you know, I might be able to magnetize it. I don't know. These are all things that I've got to sort of try. But I would like to, you know, get a light in the thruster, you know, maybe get a bit of different colour in there. So that one I'm still not really decided on, but the main body ones will definitely get done. So when we talk about the legs are a bit different again. Whatever I do with the legs, I'm going to have to run the wires sort of up through this waist bit, and of course that's on a swivel. It doesn't swivel that far, so I'm not really that concerned about that. I can sort of put another hole in here, make the holes reasonably large to give it plenty of room for the wires to go through. And then I've got the issue of sending wires, you know, sort of out the leg through the hip, and we have polycaps here. So again, not quite sure whether I want the wire to go sort of through that polycap and into this post. I think that will probably weaken the post. So what I might end up doing is just have it come out the back, and if it's once the leg's in place, you're hardly going to see that wire going through. So I think that'll be the best bet, rather than risking making this peg weaker and having the leg sort of drop off. So that's the waist, and as we move down, I can take this bit off. All these pieces along here are basically polycaps and pegs. So I've got to sort of decide, okay, again, I don't really want to weaken the post, so I'm probably going to end up drilling a separate hole and have the wires come through, and just make sure that I don't sort of pivot it, too much that the wire gets all bound up and breaks. And probably one of the, and look, these parts here, there's plenty of room for me to run wires in. The problem is in this knuckle. I don't know what you call a knee or a knuckle. It's actually very tight in there. So there's these pieces that bend a little bit, and they do bend as far as when you pose the legs. But there's very limited space on the bottom or the top of this piece to get a wire through. So I'm thinking I might have to go on the side. And I'm going to have to experiment with this, and this will probably be the first thing I'll look at to see whether it's worth my while actually lighting up the, these base lights on the foot. So I'm going to try drilling a very small hole on the side. And to give you an idea of, I guess, the way I'm thinking about in terms of the wiring, what I'm thinking of using is this stuff, which I believe is called magnet wire, and it is super thin. So it's a copper wire, and it has a enamel coating on it that you have to sort of burn off when you want to solder it. But you can see how thin that stuff is. It doesn't actually have a gauge on it. I think I've written 0.2 mil, but I don't know if that's right. So you can see that I don't need a very big space to, maneuver these wires around. So that's what I'll be using for the wiring up through the legs. And so again, it's a matter of whether I can fit that down the sides there. Okay, for the foot, this bit comes off. And also the toe comes out, so that gives you a bit of an idea of what's sort of going on there. These clear pieces, it's a bit hard to see, but they actually butt up together. So I'll have to cut them down so that I can get some LEDs in there. I haven't decided whether I'm going to use one and try and light them both at the same time, or whether I'll use two. I think it might be safer to use two, just because LEDs tend to be quite directional as far as the light. So if I have one coming down the middle, you're not going to get actually much light out of either side. So I might end up using two. Now this is another area that presents a bit of an issue as far as the lighting goes, and it's in the way that it's sort of set up to be constructed. So first of all, these white pieces, my spudger. So these white pieces are split down the middle, which means I'm going to have to glue them together so that I can address this seam that runs down the front and also on the back. So it just means that for these grey bits, there's no sort of way around it. I'm going to have to mask it, which is a bit unfortunate, but I'm not sure of how else they could have done it. So, and look, the seams are pretty minimal. They do actually match quite well. So if you weren't planning on gluing it together, then you're not going to have too much of an issue. But of course, there's also a seam down the front and the back of this grey part as well. So that's all going to have to be glued, painted, before I put the white pieces on, and then I've got to mask and glue those. So let's get these apart actually. Now there's a thruster on the back here which I would like to light up. It's going to be pretty small, but I reckon it'll look pretty cool if I get to light that up. Basically I'm looking to light this thing up like a Christmas tree. The Bandai one I built I didn't do any, the only lighting I did was on the eye, and I kind of think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. I'll bring it in here because it also had these clear pieces on the bottom of the foot. So I kind of think, yeah, I missed an opportunity there. These legs have all gone. Musical chairs on me. So all I did was just the eye, which I'm sorry doesn't actually work at the moment, but yeah, I didn't do the thrusters or anything like that. So it was one thing I kind of regretted with that build, and I thought, you know, I could have done some more lighting. And here's my opportunity. It's just that this thing is going to be, it's going to be challenging. You know, that's what modelling is all about, isn't it? It's about overcoming challenges when you want to do something. And like most of the stuff I light, it sits on my shelf, never turned on. But for me, it's about, you know, the challenge of it. You know, can I do it? How far can I push my modelling skills? Whoops. So this is the piece that sort of holds the toe in. But here you get a better idea of those clear pieces, how they sort of sit in there. And so when this comes together, you can sort of see yeah, how they actually butt join, those two red pieces. So we'll have to cut them down to be able to get an LED in there. But that aside, I do have plenty of room in there for wiring, so that's not so much of an issue. So I can have a wire sort of coming, you know, from the bottom here, light up the LED for the thruster out the back. You know, these are all ideas I'm throwing around. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to start on the wiring, sort of try to prototype it a little bit, see how I go. And once I've got that sorted, I'll come back and show you what I've sort of decided with the path I'm going to go down. I was going to do all the electronics as part of this first video, but I can see that it's going to be a lot more complex than I originally thought. For something that's a kit that's really only a few colours, this thing has turned into something a bit more complicated than I thought it would. So as you can see from this mess here, I have started looking at the electronic side of things, and I've decided I'm going to put it in a separate video, so that way for people who are not interested in lighting this kit, they can just skip to the video that'll be following. So I'll do all the electronics in one video, and yeah, until that next video, I'll catch you later.